Yes, it's working. Very good. So today is 15th of April, and going to have another wonderful day. It's almost our time. '29. Well, it is 10:30 UK time. So today is the 15th of April. And let's start doing a quick prayer. Father, thou art in heaven, here we are again, together in your name, trying to learn the beauty of the mediumship and its phenomena, to allow us to get better, to progress in this avenue that our brother Kardec prepared for us. Be with us today and always. So be it. So that's that. Let me share with you all, as always, I cannot share until I open the file first. So now it should be better. Let me move that over here. Okay, share. Share. Can you see my book? Okay, good. Let me just make it a little bit easier for me. Let me increase that screen here. All right, we are ready to go. So we have stopped where I marked here. And it's a very little part, but that will give us the means to discuss about the other part of the evaluation of the communications from spirits, right? If you remember well, during the last Saturday, we spoke to a length about the mediums part of it, how the mediums would react, how the mediums would work. And today we're going to be speaking a little bit more, but now, before we move to the next chapter, about how the indoctrinator should do his part of it. So this is one of the biggest obstacles faced by practical spiritism. We shall return to deal with this subject further on, given it the development required by its importance. And at the same time, we shall shed light on the means of avoiding the danger of erroneous communication. So one thing that is clear in that last sentence is we need to elaborate more. And when I say elaborate more, it means that we need to study more, right? And we also need to be aware that there are the possibilities of erroneous communications. That means using today terms, fake message, fake news, if you like, right? Before I start to talk about it, one thing that also came to my mind during the week is that last Saturday, someone made a question, I don't remember whom, about the other books of the Spiritism, the other books from Kardec. And I have mentioned at the time that, yes, we cannot only use one book and believe that everything is on that book. On the other hand, what we really need is to be able to go from one to another because they complete one another, right? And as a prime example, I will show you, let me just move that here to the bottom. I will show you this book. The book that you see now on your screen is the Gospel according to the Spiritism, right? And this message was chosen by chance, if you like, in our mediumship meeting last Thursday. And after that message, we had the mediumship meeting as we used to. And in the end, we had some comments from one of the spirits that work with us about this message. This message must be our guidance, must be the guidance for the indoctrinators to ascertain the level, how serious the meeting is intended to be, to minimize impact on message received on other people. So let's read that one first. The false prophets from the spiritual world. This is chapter 21, by the way. False prophets are not found solely amongst incarnates. They are also to be found in even greater numbers amongst the prideful spirits who, by appearing to be all love and charity, sow disunion and hold back the work of emancipating humanity by infiltrating the absurd doctrines. I'll go step by step, right? So I will highlight first prideful spirits. Why am I highlighting that first? Because I need to remind us all that we are exactly the same when we are incarnated or discarnated. The same positive things we have when we are incarnated, we have when we are discarnated. The same negative characteristics we have when we are incarnated, we take with us to the spiritual world. We do not change just because we left the physical body. And all those spirits, they come quite frequently, showing love, nice words, trying to tell you to do good things. Why they do that? Well, let's think about incarnators that we are. I want to convince one of you to do something. Which is the best way I will convince you to do something? Is with honey or with poison? Is with honey. Because you feel more comfortable. You will believe me. If I'm coming to you, offering you poison, you will identify straight away and you will reject. But if I'm coming to you with nice words, trying to promote something that you believe is right as well, and then after I gain your trust, I truly gain your trust, then I can put what I want. It sounds reasonable, isn't it? Because we would act like that. So why would the spirit act in a different way? You would act exactly the same way. One thing that's also very important is that those activities, those events, when they happen, they come to create disunion on the group. I saw over the years things like that happen. And when they happen, unfortunately, quite often, we lose a member of the group. Hi, Daniel.
I have two things to comment, and one is, can you make the page a little bit bigger, please? I don't know if it's possible. Zooming. Thank you. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. And the other one, it is a little bit of a comment that, to be honest, we are incarnated, so we have things that we need to learn and be a little bit more, be prideful. It is one of them, and I'm including myself on that list in a general sense. So the thing that comes to my mind is, we are not perfect, far from it. While we start to learn some things, we in some way will be exactly like that. We're gonna mix good things with bad things. It is the nature of evolution in some sense. So my question is, it is not exactly that with everyone. You have a lot of things that you are not prone already, but you start to learn one of them a little bit, and you obviously cannot separate one of the other perfectly. Otherwise, will we be already perfect on that sense? So it is not a case of everyone that is evolving, and it is incarnated at the moment in a general sense.
I don't see like that, because there is a difference between what is inherited on you. That is exactly what you said. I have good and evil within me, right? And there are another option, another possibility is that I'm doing that for purpose. What we're talking here is not what we are. We all are imperfect. Even when we die, we'll be imperfect. But that's not what it's all about here. What is all about here is that the choice is conscious, is a choice to create harm to a person or to a group. And then there are two different things, in my opinion. Okay? So disunion, as I was saying, when we see something like that, when we see an attempt from spirits, as described by Kardec, to create pride among us, to create an environment that we all believe blindly in something, in the end, we'll lose members of the group or the whole group, right? And I saw already over the years friends, if I may call them like that, deciding to go away because they could not agree. They could not see things like that happening with them, nor with the group, right? And that's the goal. That's what they want. Minimize the number of people that are moving in the right direction. Minimize the number of people that are evolving, because that's the goal. Stop that team. Stop that good thing they are doing. That's the goal, right? So they create this union on the group, infiltrating ideas. I don't know if you saw me already saying before, but in general, the ideas they are infiltrating are good ideas. We see as good ideas because we do not project the consequences of the idea in 6 months' time, in 1 year time, because we all believe, yeah, that's good, let's do it now. After all, there was not really a good idea. There was an idea that down the road proved that create more harm than good. So we always need to be very attentive. It's like a chess. A good chess player is not just foreseeing the next step for his opponent. No, a good chess player can go up to 10 future steps, projecting the consequences of he moving one piece. That one piece could create me 10 different outcomes. And then he would evaluate from these 10 possible outcomes, which one would be more viable, and he would go for it. So we have to be the same. We have to take the same approach. Back, work emancipating humanity by infiltrating the absurd doctrines. There are things that are really nonsense. Really nonsense. And as the time goes by, we see a lot of nonsense, even in the Spiritism. When I mean nonsense, I mean people that could have studied a little bit more magnetism, fluids, and a few other things, all right? So that's why I will always advocate that a serious spiritist need to study. Study for life. Why study for life? If I study once is not enough. No, because things evolve, as Kardec said to us, things will evolve. So if you want to follow, we have to study what has been done in the past and what has been done in the recent past, right? After having gained the medium's acceptance of them, that's the main step. If I'm a spirit that I want to create a mass in that group or with that medium, I will do everything I can to gain his or her trust. Otherwise, I will not achieve my goal. So we need to be very attentive. In order to fascinate those, they desire to delude, to give more weight to their theories. They appropriate without scruples those names that humankind pronounces only with great respect. First thing, they have no scruples at all. They have no scruples at all. They will do anything in their power to try to achieve what they want to. We need to be aware of it. And every time when we see things coming with nice names, beware. We need to evaluate 10 times more thoroughly than we would a message without a name. That is the duty of the indoctrinator. And quite often, when the indoctrinator does that, the medium becomes unhappy. Because is he telling me that my message is fake? Is he telling me that I am fake? I'll leave this group. They're not good enough for me. It happens more often than we think. Because we are humans. And everyone here would like to be a Chico Xavier, for example. But we are not. But we would like to be. I would like to be the best medium ever. I would like to be the best medium of the group. I would like to be the best indoctrinator of the group. This is, to a certain extent, human. And it's exactly those characteristics that those spirits may use against us. Hi, Yasmin.
Good morning, everyone. As
Morning.
you're talking about Chico Xavier, I would just like to add something, because it's true that we are still we have pride and we want to be the best, as you said, and we want to be that and that thing. But we also forget that Chico Xavier had endured a lot during his life since he was a child, and I mean, if please correct me if I'm wrong, but if we intend to be at least 1% of what he was, we should be also ready to endure at least 1% of what he has endured in because his life was not always pink, as we say in French, I'm sorry. And yeah, he encountered also a lot of adversaries and people who didn't agree with him, and so yeah, that's a thing we have to bear in mind. I don't know.
I totally agree with you. But the majority of us, we just want to be on the spotlight as he was. The majority of us, we don't want to stop drinking, we don't want to stop smoking, we don't want to stop blasphemy, we don't want to stop doing wrong things else. We don't want to be more devoted for charity. We don't want to wake up early to help someone. We don't want to study more. That's not what I want. I just want to be on the spotlight. I totally agree with what you said, but the great majority is the opposite. I just want to be on the spotlight. And this is really the danger, because then it's showing my pride, my ego, that's what I want. I want to write books. I want to do this. And I want to believe the spirit that is writing the book is this spirit. And when I compare the way the spirit is writing through me and the way the spirit is writing through 10 other mediums, I cannot even identify the same type of writing, sorry. So it's very complicated. It's very touchy, the subject. Hi, Jackie.
It's a comment, actually, because it's very interesting how when you started talking about when things develop, so we need to always be studying. And now what Yasmin said, and you went back to the point, if we just look at spiritism aside, if we just look at a human being's development, what a 5-year-old can do and what a 15-year-old can do is different. And if you've read a book at the age of 15, at the age of 30, your interpretation will be very different because your life has come in the middle of it and you've developed. And the amazingness of spiritism is that every time we read something, we might have had the opportunity to understand it a little better because of everything that it has developed, ourselves included. And pride is one of our biggest failures, faults, whichever word one wants to use to describe. But one of the many blessings is that if we really are true to what we're trying to understand and learn here, then we never stop studying, as you said. And hopefully, by always addressing and always going back to the basics or always going back to the teachings that we have access, as you've commented in many studies, the teachings that we can trust, like Kardec and the basic works, that we know we can trust, always go back to it. Perhaps one day we might be a little bit less prideful in about 500 reincarnations ahead.
And I agree entirely with you. And it's amazing how we, studying Kardec continuously, we find things that we could not find before. It's amazing. And this is one of this test I'm reading is one of them, to be honest. Right? So let's move on a little bit. These spirits scatter a tumult of antagonism amongst groups. It's not only within the group, is amongst the groups. Impelling them to isolate themselves. Could be the medium himself, could be the group. From all others, and to look upon each other with suspicion. We see that in our day-to-day life. Why do you think that would be different from the spiritual world to us? It's no different. The situation alone is enough to unmask them. Yes, I totally agree. The situation is enough to unmask them. But quite often, it's too late. It's too late. And when we see things and we try to warn the medium or we try to warn the group, no one sees. Until the deed is done, the dirty deed is done. Ooh, how we could not see that before. Then it's too late. You already lost the medium. You will see me from time to time in the mediumship meeting, taking actions and tell people, I'm trying to protect you. Because that's our duty as indoctrinator as well. But sometimes the person is not prepared to it, or don't want to be in that position. Because when it's done, it's done. At least 50% of mediums where they see themselves in such a situation, they manage to recover and regain their confidence in themselves, the trust of the group, and continue working in that group. And the percentage, I'm being very kind saying 50%. The other 50% will leave the group for good. Because it was too late to be noticed, to stop the process. It was too late. The situation alone is enough. Yeah, blind. Let me see here. This situation alone is enough to unmask them, since by so proceeding, they are the first to offer a clear denial of who they claim to be. As a human beings, we are always right. We are never wrong, never. This is my first denial. I'm never wrong. In that situation where I am the vehicle of the message, and I'm so happy because I'm the vehicle of this message. The message cannot be wrong either. And I will advocate the spirit. So the chain of effect is very complicated. I can never be wrong. I'm happy to receive those messages. And I truly believe I'm the chosen one from that spirit. How can an indoctrinator help this situation? Without losing the medium. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Blind, therefore, are those who allow themselves to fall for so great a hoax. However, there are many other ways by which they may be recognized, spirits of this particular category to which they say they belong, have to be not only very good, but also eminently rational. Let me just say something that came to my mind here now. A lot of us that we are mediums, we are very happy to say that I recognize the spirit by the energy. It's a good energy, it's a bad energy. But sometimes we are involved in the process and we lost the ability to identify if it's good or bad energy because we are in the process. We are part of the process. We lost that. Sometimes even in the meeting, when we have a clairvoyant medium, the medium that can see the spirits, he can see the spirits as not bad spirit. And the spirit is not what he is pretending to be. It's very delicate, it's very difficult situation. Well then, put all the doctrines to test of a reason and good sense, and then see what you have left. One thing that's also very important to know is that a high evolved spirit, he will always be willing to answer your questions if your questions are serious, if your purpose are positive, if your purpose are serious. You should ask the spirit and ask again and ask again. I had a situation in the past that the nice spirit giving instructions, he lost the plot. He became aggressive, irritated because of the questions. That's a way to find a mischievous spirit as well. You will agree with me that every time a spirit indicates things of an utopian, childish, impracticable, and ridiculous nature, that's easy to find, right? Or formulates a dogma that the most rudimentary notions of science contradicted. This can be tricky. It can be tricky.
Gil, it's Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hi. Can I just go back to your previous statement where you mentioned, or we talked about Kardec and the spirits, etc. I mean, isn't it even in Kardec's book where there's questions being asked of the spirits, and sometimes the spirits will say, I've already told you. So it sounds like they're getting aggressive, or that's how it comes across. I've already told you about this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we know that they're not spirits that are
okay? Let's assume that I'm working with this spirit for 20 years. This is one scenario. We gain trust, mutual trust, based on the results that we did for 20 years. Guilherme, I told you already. All right. And then there's another spirit that comes. I have no idea who he is because I cannot see him. I cannot recognize. He does not have a badge showing who he is. And he started to give me instructions. I will ask 1, 2, 3, 4. I will ask as many as I need to be able to formulate my theory. Perhaps after the 10th question, I will say yes. Okay, I agree with you. Perhaps on the end of the 10th questions, I say, what you're telling me is nonsense. And that is my duty as indoctrinator to do. And if this spirit is not happy to answer me those 10 questions until I come to a conclusion, that is one of the signs. There are cases and cases. Oh dear, 2 hands. Hi, Cleo.
Hi. I just want to make a quick comment. Now that we are talking about receiving message, some time ago, I received a message where was saying, basically the message was saying that we had already studied enough, that there was no need for more study. And I ask your advice on it. And from what we have been studying Kardec until now, we know that the study is very important, because things are always progressing, and the more study is never enough. We always have to keep studying. And from that message, and based on your expertise, I understood that wasn't the right person try to give a message. And also, we studied before that a good tree never give a bad fruits. So we always have to analyze the message and not just get the message and think because you got is right. And that message did teach me a lot, because from that day, I always analyze the content of the message and always go back to Kardec to make sure that the message was right. And it's very difficult sometimes, because on our day life, we can see the person, and when we are receiving the message, we cannot see. And sometimes feel the energy it is another thing, but I think for me comes with practice. And I just want to point that out, and to have someone who we can go to and ask to help us to identify the message is also very important and help greatly.
Let me use, I appreciate what you said, Cleo, and let me use what you said to bring some items. I do not encourage the medium to evaluate his own message. Why not? But I study, but you are deeply involved in that equation. Who can guarantee that your evaluation is totally free of bias? Because you have received the message. If you receive the message in your home and decide to spread the message all over the world, that is your responsibility. I do not encourage mediums to do it. I may be wrong, but I do not encourage. Right? And let me paint another scenario that is, I want to disrupt her mediumship from the beginning. So I'm a spirit. I will come in telling what I want to make her happy, to boost her pride. Spread the message. And then you start to spread nice messages. Well, today it's very easy, huh? WhatsApp, email, you name it. Then down the line, I start to add in the message what I really want to add in the message. But then you are blind already. By your blind faith, by your ego, by your pride. And the medium is lost. Okay. When the medium received any message and the content of the message goes against the logic, the reason, like you said, you don't need to study anymore. You have your answer. You know what kind of spirits you are dealing with. And that's just one example, right? So the way I learned, after the medium received a message in the meeting, he would give the message to the coordinator of the meeting, and the coordinator of the meeting would evaluate the message. Especially in the beginning, when we start to be a medium. It's very tricky. I do not encourage that. I truly don't. So, Liz, tell me what you want to say.
It's about when a trusted spirit or an evolved spirit says, we have already told you that. This is because of breaking our free will. You see, when you're learning, it's 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. And so if they've already told us something, we are being lazy by not referring to it or going back into our notes. And we are using them, you know, to prompt ourselves. So a lot of the time we're told this or refer to previous transcripts or something like that for that reason. But that is only if it's a spirit that you've been dealing with for a long time who knows that they've already told you before in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Rafaela, I see your hand. Go on.
Yes, Guilherme, I just wanted to make a comment about the two situations you described. The last situation you described, you mentioned, for example, a spirit comes through and say, you've studied enough. And obviously it's a very negative comment, and we all understand that the study can never end. And sometimes we may raise the question, why would the benefactors let a spirit like this come through on tape and say and leave a message like that to us? And I believe that often the answer lies because they are trying to harmonize the group, reshape the group, but also find out where the danger lies. Because when a spirit like that comes through and say, you need stop studying, he brings his own vibe, and with his own vibe he brings other spirits that could be saying the same thing to different medias from that group. So that's often a way, it's almost like, I believe, is a way that the higher spirits can map the obsessors and find out who has got an influence. Because we are energy, our chakras, they have a vision on our chakras and everything. When that spirit speaks, he can see on the chakras of the mediums who responded to. So sometimes situations like this happen when negative suggestions come through or negative behavior, to find out what's the root of the problem in that family, in that house. Because some spirits are some obsessors are so intelligent, they only disturb at certain places and at certain times. And I know that spirits have full conscience of everything, but it's much easier to catch the root if they know hit there in that table. They can almost magnetize that spirit to the meeting and solve the issue better. That's one thing. And then the other suggestion that you mentioned was about oh, it just blanked out. Maybe it's not meant to be said. I'll leave it as that. But I had another suggestion. I'll speak privately when he comes back to me about the other thing you mentioned earlier.
Okay, sounds good to me. Thank you. As a solution for the problems of humanity, or as a means to achieving their transformation, then these ideas can only come from a very ignorant or lying spirit. On the other hand, you may be sure that if an individual does not always appreciate the truth, it is appreciated by the good sense of the masses, which constitute yet one more criterion. If two principles contradict each other, we can find the measure of value inherent in both by verifying which of the two generates a greater echo and sympathy. Apart from the fact that it would be illogical to admit to oneself that any doctrine whose number of adepts progressively diminishes is more truthful than of another whose followers continually increase. In desiring that the truth reach everyone. God has not confined it to a narrow circle, but has made it appear in all places, so that the light shines in all places alongside the darkness. Do not hesitate even for a moment in repelling all those spirits who present themselves as exclusive counselors, preaching separation and isolation. So I saw in the past people trying to label spirits and mediums because that spirit came too often through that spirit. This is not what Kardec is saying here. They are usually vain and mediocre spirits who seek to impose upon and dictate to weak and credulous people by lavishing exaggerated praise upon them, with the aim of fascinating them and thus hold them under their domination. Generally, these kind of spirits who are eager for power continue to look for victims to tyrannize even after death. In general, mistrust all communications that have a mystical and singular character or those that prescribes eccentric acts and ceremonies. In all of these cases, there is always a legitimate motive for suspicion. Equally, you may be sure that when a truth is to be revealed to humankind, it is by way of saying instantly communicated to all serious groups who have at their disposal serious mediums. This is very important. Serious groups and serious mediums, not only to one group at the exclusion of all others. No mediums are perfect if they become obsessed. And there is manifest obsession when they are accustomed to receive communications from only one specific spirit, however elevated that spirits pretend to be. Consequently, every medium or group who believes they are privileged because of the communications they alone obtain, especially when they are subject to practice bordering on superstitions, will undoubtedly find themselves caught up in a well-characterized situation of spiritual obsession. Above all, this will surely be the situation when the dominating spirit's communicator swagger under a name which both incarnated and discarnated alike honor and respect, and would not normally allow reputations to be compromised in this manner. He's not saying here that we will never receive messages from well-known spirits. It's the other way he's saying here. We have to be very attentive. We need to be cautious. We need to be thorough in our analysis. It is incontestable that by submitting all facts, phenomena, and communications received from spirits to a crucible of reason, it becomes easy to reject the errors and absurdities. A single medium may become fascinated or a single group deluded, but a strict control from other groups, from acquired science, the elevated quantity of the directors of groups, the quality of the communication received by the principal mediums, together with logic, and whenever possible, the verification of authenticity of the most serious spirits communicators, it is possible to quickly render justice to all falsehoods and trickery from any band of astutely mystifying or evil spirits. So that is in the gospel, right? So now we go back to our book. Hi, Charles.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Two short remarks. One is the spirit who gave that communication was Erastus in 1862. And the medium who was, used by Erastus to communicate himself is called Alice Dambel. Yeah? So what happened later on, 2 years later in 1864, is that this Alice Dambel felt exactly in the trap that Erastus is describing here. So we have to be extremely careful because nobody is, exempted from this type of danger. Alice Dambel, he started to make a new spiritist magazine called L'Avenir, which was in competition with the Kardec one, Revue Spirit, and using, by the way, some communication received in the Parisian Society of Spiritist Studies. In this, when you look to this review, you can see communication signed by the same spirit, Erastus, but with a content completely different. And unfortunately, the thing ended up not very good because the people, they saw that it was not the same quality, so he could not sell his magazine anymore, and he ended up committing suicide. Alice Dambel, the medium. And the second short remark is what Kardec is advising here for spiritist communication is today absolutely and fully true for any communication we get bombarded the whole day long through the social media, through the news, through whatever, because it's exactly the same principle. You have a lot of people willing to manipulate ourselves, to make us buying things that we don't need, to convince us about absurd things. And the same precautions that Kardec is advising with the communication of the spirit is today fully applicable for analyzing and discerning from all the information we get daily and at any hour of the day, in order to make the difference between what makes sense and what does not make sense.
It's very difficult to identify those situations. So now going back for the indoctrinators, because today we said we would speak about the duty of indoctrinator. We have, let's say, yeah, go on, Daniel, before I start.
Can you zoom in a little bit on the text, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, yeah. Let's say that we all here are indoctrinators, that eventually will receive a message to evaluate. Do you believe we all evaluate the message in the same way? Or we will evaluate the message based in what I believe, in what I study, with the practices I was exposed, basically with my experience? It's more like it, isn't it? So we need to be careful with that too. It's not because the person is acting in that position that his evaluation will be correct. Maybe partially correct, maybe completely wrong. So that's why, again, people need to study. And especially the indoctrinators or the coordinators of the meeting, or you call whatever you like that position. If he's a serious person, he needs to study constantly. And he needs to be open to consider other venues as well. He needs to be open to listen to others as well. Because if he starts to believe he is the truth, he knows everything, here we go. He opened a door to a different kind of influenciation from the spiritual world. So it's always very tricky. It's always very touchy. Because we want to see what we want to see, mediums or indoctrinators. We want to interpret what makes us feel better. Especially on the beginning, when we are starting the mediumship or when we are starting to act as indoctrinator, we need to be very careful. Sometimes we are very eager to show that we are learning. I'm good already. And that could be tricky. I need to remind us all that everything that comes through us that I decide to share, that I decide to publicize, that I decide to give suggestion to others, that I decide not to give suggestion to others, we are responsible for it. We are responsible for it. So we need to be thorough. We need to be thorough. I like to use as an example Chico Xavier mediumship on the beginning, when he started to write to books, messages. I don't remember how long was the period that Emmanuel told him to do everything, not to publicize anything, not to give to anyone. And on the end, now we can throw everything on the rubbish, on the bin. Because now we'll start to work. And we're talking about Chico Xavier, right? So we need to be very careful, very careful. And what should I do then? We have our free will. I think we heard enough here already to know the basics of what we should or we should not do. But we need to be conscious about whatever we do, because we may have an impact in someone. Something I see as a medium, a clairvoyant medium, something I received as a psychographic medium, something that was recorded through my psychophony may help or may do exactly the opposite. So we will never be 100%, but we need to consider that we should do our best to be at 100%, to arrive to a level that, yes, the information is reliable. And as Charlie says, is reliable today. If tomorrow I made a bad choice, I may open a little crack in my shield and a bad influence may start. It can happen to everyone. Does anyone have any particular question before we move to, let me see, what time is it? Oh, no, 3 minutes to go. Sorry, no time for question. Well, last question if someone has a question before we close the study for today. Good, no questions, good. I do not encourage you to make any question in my study. You don't need to study anymore because what you saw here today is sufficient to guide you through your path as a medium or indoctrinator. What I just did, I'm giving you an example of things that sometimes we are not so attentive and we may accept as a good advice or as a truth. Imagine when we don't see who is talking, when we do not know who is talking. We all can fall, but we all have the duty to be attentive. Hi, I see a hand. Go on.
Yes, I have a quick question, really quick, because how can we? Sorry, Joy, not right now. Sorry. How, as everyone has a different conception and education and knowledge about all about spirits and so on. How is it possible? I mean, for indoctrinators, how can we be sure that they have enough knowledge or experience to then we can rely to them? Because it's, for example, let's say people just started to read the Spirit's book and the Medium's book and the Gospel, and they decided to create a group. And oh yeah, this person has known Spiritism for 5 years. Well, but how can we be sure? Also, for example, that someone else comments are real and not maybe sometimes just to destroy or because he is jealous or anything like that.
You will never know. You will never know. Trust is something we gain with time, with experience, with exposure. If you only learn through books, your knowledge is limited. If you only learn through practice, your knowledge is limited. If you only have 2 years, you may know more than someone that's there for 20 because you were eager to learn. Perhaps if you study 5, you know less than we study 2. So you never know. So that's part of the evaluation as well. It has to be taken into account. Like I said here, we may have 10 different doctrinators here. We may have 10 different answers. So is the responsibility of the person who will listen to the information that is receiving, which one is the best information? Well, it's time to wrap up. Munir, he was very quiet today, so I asked Munir to do a final prayer.
Okay, let's do it. Let's just unite our thoughts, our hearts, raise them up to God, our beloved Master Jesus, our guardian angels and the benefactors, for this opportunity of once again meeting here under their inspiration and guidance to know a bit more about life in the spirit world and the communication between the two realms. May we work in this wonderful doctrine, sharing with others what we learn, what we receive. So through our betterment, then our example and our daily life may inspire others. So be it.
So be it. So looking forward to be with you all again in a week time. Have a great weekend. See you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.